Kia te tuki pai e tēnei hui a mene. Thank you. So I will hand you over into the very capable hands of Richard to share his slides. And
Cool.
Are you going to share the slides, Sarah?
I am. Can you see it now? All good. Can everybody see it?
Yes, thanks.
Fantastic.
Okay, we'll flip through to the first one.
There we go. That's a bit better.
Thank you. So really, I'm following the format that Steve sort of set out. We give you a bit of an update of the activities which we've been doing relating to the treatment plant. And some of them are ongoing. We've talked about them before. But first one will be the conveyance studies, where we'll talk to that, and then we'll talk about the MBR plant tender, the land, the ministry memorandum of understanding, and then we'll talk to how the private land investigation's going, and then we'll talk about a further development of we've now looking at the public land, and we'll talk through why we're doing that and what we're up to there. So can we move on to the next one, Sarah? It's not coming up very well, is it? Yeah, that's a bit better. So on the conveyance schemes, what we've been up to, as you can see, we've pretty much got a preliminary pipeline route, which is the purple line through there. So we've completed the concept design of the pipeline up to Mangatawhiri Road, the site we're looking at. And we'll sort of show you a little bit in the further along in the presentation about the layout and what we're going to do up at Mangatawhiri Road. The design here has included a pump station design as well. So we've got that in the site where we'd put it down by the day pond within the existing treatment plant layout. It's quite a high lift all the way up here. You can see it's up and down all the way. There's lots of air valves you can see marked there. And the total lift is about 180 metres, I think, up to that plateau where we're finding the nice loamy soils. So that's where we're at it. We've got that, and we've got some preliminary estimates on that route too. Okay, we'll move to the next slide, please. The MBR plant, that's a sort of preliminary layout. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the sites. We've got, those are the existing oxidation ponds. You can sort of see how they're aerated with all the little strands of bubbles across them. And then you can see the solar farm at the back, the solar panels behind what were the anoxic ponds, which we don't currently utilise. And on top of that, that's a preliminary layout of what's tenders, and it's a design and build tender. So there'll be variations to that. That was the specimen design which our consultant prepared as part of the tender package, which they took away, and then they work on it. So the tender stage has gone through. They've gone through. They've received them. There's been toing and froing, sort of. It's typical of a design build, and now the assessment is progressing. So that will come out, and that will get further forwarded up through the Water Governance Board and through the council infrastructure once we've got the prices and what we're going to get. So that's progressing nicely, and it's very, very close to accumulating. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so Richard, just a question on that is the solar panels being installed for there, is that would
no,
be
we did that about 2 years ago, and
yep.
It generates enough power. Obviously, it feeds back into the grid, but it means
yep.
that in Raglan, we're pretty much energy neutral for all our water infrastructure. That includes all the wastewater plants and the water plant and the pump stations.
Okay, enough capacity to do that. Pretty much neutralise our energy.
Neutralise our
Yep.
footprint. Yeah, obviously
Excellent.
it
Very
doesn't.
good.
Obviously it produces at daytime and not at night.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, that was finished probably about a year and a half ago.
Right.
This is up at Mangatawhiri Road, the Peacock land which we've been looking at. And you can sort of see the red line there, that's the main riser pipe coming up. And then you can see all the yellow ones are the sort of feeder branches and then the internal irrigation pipes. And between all of those, they feed the strands of subsurface drippers, which are buried, I think it's they're 600 millimeters apart, but I think they're about 300 millimeters deep. And that's pretty well concept design's completed on that. We've finished our estimated what the cost will be to install all these fields. The ones up, you'll notice some of the name, because how we operate this is we rotate them. They're on for 1 day, each of these fields. There's 6 fields which we'd have active, and so they keep rotating around, so we rest the fields. But you'll see some are marked, they have an R in front of them. Those ones wouldn't be built, they're just reserve fields in a sort of concept design we've got around. So, sort of see the ridgeline to the northeast. They've got all R's, and those are the ones which we wouldn't build, but that's sort of some reserve fields for future growth.
So Richard, do the distribution lines, they sort of follow the ridges? Are they sort of
very much on the plateaus, and this one has been more difficult than the one they did down in Tiana because it's not as flat here. So yeah, so we've pretty much we've surveyed all of them, and we've pretty much had to stick to the flat areas. But we've done a lot of work in actually establishing those areas. And if you go to the next slide, there's a couple of photographs of how they install these tubes. Okay, so it's a sort of like a mole plough, but it has a number of is it 4 that does it once? So you just work your way around the paddock and install them that way. And these tubes they aren't any sort of common polyethylene. They're quite high. They're not some sort of farmer's stuff. You know, they even have a coating inside to stop microbes growing on them and things like that. So it looks pretty agricultural, but it is quite a sophisticated dripper system.
can you run stock on the land once you've got the
We prefer not to. We prefer to use it as cut and carry, Hugh. That's the idea, because you're actually removing the nitrogen. Obviously Fonterra won't let us graze these. So the idea currently is to cut and carry and feed to beef cattle.
I was just thinking sheep, you know, if it's rolling land, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we can probably have a session once if we do go ahead with this, because we've got some pretty high-powered experts, and they're better at explaining than I am. But we can get them along to a session or a session with you, Hugh, if you want a particular one. I know that Professor Freeman, who does all the design and of the nutrient loading uptaking, because we model it, he is coming up in the next month or so, because we want to have a good look at Wainui Reserve again, because you know, at the end of the day, we're going to have a number of options which the community have to look at the benefits and the costs and decide which is the best way forward.
I guess you wouldn't want any stock, you know, potentially damaging the lines or adding additional nutrients to the land.
Okay, can we go to the next one? Okay, this is sort of the latest bit of work which we're just starting again. Originally, we had a very, very, very once-over look at Wainui Reserve. Steve did a lot of work in identifying the ones which areas which are used for sound splash and things which, you know, we'd really, I think the public perception is more we'd try to keep away from those areas. We probably view them as reasonably safe. So you can sort of see the areas we're going to look at, with the pink sort of pinky purple line. The land down here is more weathered. It's not as good. It's not as loamy. And some of it is likely, especially if we use the one near the coast, that gully down there. I don't know if you've walked up there. That's sort of all been replanted and it's quite steep, that area. Not ideal, but we were sort of looking at potentially a more rapid sand sort of system. But we'll talk more about that once they've gone back and had a proper look at it. We did do quite a bit of walking over early on, but because the soils were undesirable and parks, you know, nobody really wants us. So at the end of the day, we were going to try private land first, but our consultants advised us we need to put a little bit more effort into this, so at least it can be considered alongside the private land and the other options. All right, so that's
so Richard, that reserve with those blocks you're investigating, those pink blocks, is to say we couldn't go into that private land. Is there enough area or capacity to do what you're doing?
It's not as big an area. It's quite a bit smaller. I think it's more like 9 instead of, I think we had more like 14 up there. I did have those numbers in my head, sorry, but they've gone. I thought somebody might ask that. But that was my query with them, if it wasn't that good. But they said if we had to, we could put some effort into rehabilitating the soil and making it more friendly. But I haven't got really got the details around that. But as it progresses, we'll talk about that, and if it becomes a reality that is possible. I think he was sort of talking, you know, that they're just talking ideas at the moment. They need to get in there and have a good look at it and see if it can be done. And if we do head for that gully, we are likely to be a rapid system through the sand and out to the sea. So you get what I mean? We've got to look at it and understand it properly before we can really, that's all, you know, we're just telling you what we're about to do. Yeah. And that's really just so that when we go, if we do lodge a, you know, once the community is ready to make that decision on what option's the best way to go forward, we've got the costs and they've been done to both to a reasonable level, a similar level of scoping. So next slide, please. Oh, we did miss one item, didn't I? I thought I had one there on memorandum. Oh no, I didn't have a slide for it, but the memorandum of understanding, that's still progressing. It's with the council's strategic property team. Those negotiations are still happening. So I'm not involved directly in that, and it probably wouldn't be appropriate for me to sort of discuss those. They are progressing, not as fast as we thought they would, but they're happening. So that's pretty much my report. Sorry, I'm not as good a talker as Steve. I'm probably got through it in a lot quicker time than we normally would have, but really happy to have a discussion around it, Eugene, you know.
Yeah. Thanks, Richard. Suppose, you know, hey, great to see the progress, great to see the investigation in the other areas. You know, sometimes from the outside it just feels like we're in the never land and we're sort of, you know, not getting anywhere. But I do think that there's been a hell of a lot of good work put in. As I said, please investigating the other, you know, Wainui Reserve, etc. as an option. You know, I think really we've got to be realistic, on what we can actually do, and then really get back out to that wider community as we get to a later stage, obviously, and Lisa will know exactly when that time would be, you know, the right time to engage with the whole community on. The thing is, these days the technology and that around these MBR or ABR plants and that is so far different. And I know that sometimes when I talk to people about wastewater and that, and you talk about the new systems, everybody just thinks of it as the old ponds, and that's what you do. When they're talking about a modern system, they still think of the old system and the quality of the water that comes out of them. But that Meri plant and that we went visited the other day, and that it's pretty top notch stuff,
Yeah, and I was going to say that actually, Eugene, if there was an opportunity, to take hapu members or other really interested people up to Meri, just to see what that looks like with the outcomes for the water as well. And in the first round of when we were considering the wastewater treatment, way back in the day, Wainui Reserve in the pine trees was a consideration, wasn't it, that hapu had engaged with, that would be an appropriate area. So whether that again is that option, but it's really great that you have extended that to go back to Wainui Reserve to see what those opportunities are there. So lots of great work. And like you, Eugene, I talk about wastewater, and people often they don't realise what the technology options are and how the water quality is quite different. So I think moving forward, once we work out, land on some of those options and we go out to the community, really articulating that work of the MBR and what that actually does to that water. So great work. Thank you.
It is getting to quite an exciting phase. It's been a 4-year journey for us this time round, and at least now that the plants, it's becoming a reality. And then these next steps around how we dispose of the treated effluent. Yeah, I absolutely think there could be some opportunities there, which people's eyes will become more open, or minds will become more open to in time. Yeah.
Do you think they're ready yet for the reuse of water as potable water?
I think there's a little way to go, because even though you get rid of the pathogens, you've still got these forever chemicals, Hugh, and but I was reading an article on that where last night, and there was little mites they introduced which were gobbling up half of those sort of nasties which they don't get rid of. So technology is moving on, eh? Yeah.
I'll have a drink after all you guys do.
Well, at least our hair won't fall out, will it, Eugene?
No.
Yeah, you won't suffer that problem. But what I was amazed at when we went to Meri, sorry. I was amazed when we went to Meri when the guys actually, we walked through and talked through the process, and then at the end, turn the tap on and wash their hands on it, from the water. I mean, we wouldn't drink it, but certainly it was that next step, and it was that I thought that's pretty amazing, actually.
Well, I think the Tika Whara plant is going to be very interesting, because it's a different, it's got a little bit more technology with the MABR at the front end instead of all those tanks, which pump all the brown yucky water around you. It'll be a different sort of system, and less energy intensive, but quite an early technology for New Zealand. There's only, I think, 1 or 2 maybe plants, is there, Hugh, that you're aware of?
Ultrafiltration technology?
MABR.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very new technology in New Zealand, but yeah, becoming very popular. Tika Whara, I'm sort of wondering if, once that's commissioned, would that be a good plant to show?
I think it would be a great plant. Yeah, once we commission that, that'll be better than Meri, I think.
Comparable in size in terms of population and.
Yeah, and there's a lot of townships around New Zealand which had that sort of size population, isn't it?
So Richard, that Raglan's MABR.
No, it's an MBR as far as unless I mean, part of a design build is they allow innovation, but at the moment it's an MBR. And I'm not on the tender team, so I don't know what discussions they've had around the sort of technology that they're using, but that's part of the interactions that team has.
Even that deco photo there, even the fish life when you see it, the stream on the outlet, it's quite neat to see. So,
well, I mean, it's as part of a study we've done habitat through studies through the stream, through the treatment plant, and it's absolutely there's a lot of life in there, and we've created with the planting through the plant shady areas which and create habitat and things like that.
Richard, can I ask my usual question?
Yes.
What are your revised timeframes or milestones, just so that I can report back if I'm asked?
I really would. Sorry, I've had some disruptions with you guys taking Steve. So maybe we can jack up a separate meeting with us and Garrett. Would that be good between the regional council and Garrett and
yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, and sort of us get an idea of what your expectations are, and where we think we're heading and around the staging. I mean, really, the memorandum of understanding work has been going on for 6 months plus now, and until we can get some direction of whether that's a go or a stop, it's difficult for us here. And really, I think our initial costings have shown us we do need to look at this other option seriously. Yep.
No, that'd be good. Thanks, Richard, for that offer.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other questions?
The other issue I was always bang on about is the golf course. Is there any opportunity? I mean, one of the images you had there was, lines being laid around a green.
The unfortunate thing is that golf course, we did go and have a look at it. We'd have loved to have done it there, but if there's a pumped line going past them, there might be opportunity for them to take water for irrigation. But to try and it's solid clay through there. I couldn't believe it when we drove around. It was just there was water, surface water everywhere, Hugh. So I think, I mean, there are some other ideas. Obviously the marine discharge is still an option, even though it's not what the community wants, but it's still an option we have to put on the table. And we are having another look at other options too, around maybe running it over land for cultural reasons with some sort of waterland and then discharging it in another way. I don't know. That's just a thought that's out there, and we're just throwing ideas around internally of making sure that we have got any options sort of covered. We did look at a stream discharge up by the plant, but we did find when we did the modelling, I think we've shown you the visuals one other time, how the slug of water coming from the plant, obviously it goes up and down and doesn't dissipate like it does at the mouth of the harbour, where we discharge on the outgoing tide. The plume goes out and it's gone, whereas this plume does tend to hang around in that upper harbour. But maybe we have to go another step and look whether that does have environmental impacts with the quality of effluent we're discharging. But we had sort of pretty much discarded that option, Hugh. Yeah.
No, thanks for that.
But we have looked at it, and it's all going to be documented, obviously, in what we submit.
Excellent. Ed, do you have any other questions for the team?
No, I've been paying attention to what's going on. I mean, it's just like Hugh says, it's just the time frames now. We start getting asked questions about, when's it happening? When's it going to happen? When's it going to happen by? So that's sort of something we can talk about in that separate meeting. Monitoring wise, the same issues are there. It's not good, but we're going as fast as possible towards solution. So
I think there'll be so long as it gets approved, the MBR plant will go a long way to at least improving what we're doing currently. And then, the oxidation ponds are always a cyclic, seasonal thing with how good a effluent you're getting out of it. It's very much suffers in winter, doesn't it? They don't work that well.
No. Is there any scope for doing any upgrade works sooner rather than later without the connection to the new land
No, that's
disposal
exactly
area?
what will
Could you do
happen.
the MAB?
The plant is at the tender
Yeah.
stage, and there will be a paper going to the governance board the next meeting, I think, and that will.
Okay, so you're not
Took a
waiting
long
for the
up.
whole package to be.
No, we're not waiting for the whole shooting match. The plant is happening, but it's this. You've still got the discharge component, which is important, obviously. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent. Oh, very good. Oh, well, if that's all, thanks, Richard, for providing that information. Really good. I think we still keep continuing to do these check-ins.
I'm worried about John though.
That's all. Yeah, I know, Lisa. You might have to check in on John tomorrow, see if he's all good.
I think John's the convener of the Greens Party, and
He's busy.
So he possibly could be quite busy with doing that. So yeah, I'll check on him, but I think he'll be fine.
So he's outdoor knocking, is he?
I don't know, but I do know that he's quite active.
Yeah. You might be knowing that Steve's not going to be with us, so he's ditched us. So, oh no, hey, look, thanks everybody for coming along. It's good to always keep in touch and know what's happening. So, yeah, really looking forward to those timelines, Richard, or some proximities around those timelines will be really helpful, and better Lisa and Ed and the likes be able to feed these back to the communities as well. So, really good. So, okay, I'll if everybody's okay, I'll close this off. So. E te atua kia te tuki pai o mātou mahi e tēnei hui. Kia tau mai tō rangimari e me e manakitanga. Amene. Amene. Thank you, Sarah.